Welcome to this episode of Brilliant Brains and Beautiful Minds. I'm your host, Melanie Burnicle. Today I'll be chatting with an amazing award-winning artist where we talk through her creative process, understanding personal brand, and the importance of being able to reframe the mindset in the studio. Please welcome my wonderful guest for today, Shella Martin. Welcome, Shella.
Hello, hello.
I just wanted to start off and have a chat with you, about sort of your career history. Have you always been into makeup or what were you doing beforehand and
Mm.
where did you
This,
think you might have been?
do you want the PR response or the truth?
Maybe both, just for fun to see the difference.
I love makeup. I love color. I played with it since I was 4. That's not quite the truth. I've always loved color. I actually thought I was going to be a dermatologist.
Ah,
I didn't even think that makeup could be a career. So it was super interesting because all of a sudden I found myself actually having an arranged marriage, that I was forced to have an arranged marriage, and I had to leave my state. I was in ACT, and coming over here I had no job, I had no family, I had nothing, and I started picking up some makeup brushes, and I definitely still was on track to be, in my mind, this dermatologist, but it just took this wild ride that I couldn't explain, and after 10 years I was still doing it. So that's when I said, okay, maybe I'm a makeup artist. But it took me 10 years of acknowledging that I woke up every day and fell in love with something before I went, maybe I'm a makeup artist. So I didn't just blindly fall in love with this craft and dream of doing it and, run around with brushes in my hands creating rainbows in the air. Like, I literally struggled through the idea that I wasn't going to be a dermatologist, and had no one around me. And yeah, I found a new family.
oh, that's amazing. And so what were you doing work-wise with makeup in that time? Were you just when you weren't sure that you were a
I
makeup
did like
artist?
a couple of week little Napoleon course. Do you remember
Yeah.
Napoleon did their courses? Yeah, I finished
Yeah.
up one of the 4 to 6 week courses. Maybe it was 6 to 8 weeks, but it wasn't that long. And it was, attending twice a week and, buddy up with someone, take a model 1 class, do a little bit of theory at home. And at the end of it, I remember the girl saying, "Oh, Shella, did you enjoy the course?" And I said, "Yeah. I really loved it." And they were like, "Did you learn much from it?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't think I I, I I did." And then they were like, "Well, I'm glad that you answered it honestly, because we, as educators, felt like you might have had a little bit of a leg up." And I said, "Oh yeah, my mum's a makeup artist." And they went, "Oh, this makes so much sense now." So I was actually offered the role to be a trainer with Napoleon quite early on. But unfortunately, because I still had this dermatology dream, I said, I can't take you up on it. I'm not interested at all. And they said, "Oh, well, did you not just do a course?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, no, I just did a course to fill some time. I'm still going to be a dermatologist." They're like, "Are you going to school?" I went, "No." They're like, "How are you fulfilling this dream?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I said, "But I'm going to go, work in Maya as a spray girl for a little bit longer, and then I'll maybe see what, uni I can get into." And they were like, "Why don't you want to do the job? We can literally give you a job straight away." And I said, "No, a makeup artist is not a real job. It's not a career, and it's not something I would ever aspire to do." And I turned around and I walked out of there like I had some hidden secret of me doing this dermatology dream, and I hadn't even taken my first steps towards it. So I don't know, but 10 years later, I ran into one of the girls, and she saw me, and I was working inside Maya at one of the counters, and she was just like, "Did you actually make a career out of makeup?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." So I had this moment where I was like, "Oh my God, it's taken me such a long time to realize this is a career, it's a dream, it's fulfilling, and I love it."
Yeah. It's amazing sometimes as well, I think, depending on upbringing, because I remember my dad, when I said I wanted to do makeup, was just, that's not a career. And
No, it just, for me, it was just never a night. Like, it seems like finger painting in my mind, or doing makeup at parties or something. I was like, there's no way you could ever pay a mortgage, have a family, do any of these things as a makeup artist.
yeah, it's nice. I think, most people are grateful that you did,
when she pulled me up in Maya and she was like, "Did you actually just make this a 10-year journey? Like, she's like, have you done
Yeah.
anything else in this time since I saw you? And I was like, no. She's like, did you actually make a career out of this? And I went,
Yeah.
gosh, I did. I actually did. Now, that was 10 years ago. So a lot's
Yeah.
happened since then.
That's amazing. So tell us, so in the last year, you've picked up a fair few titles. Do you want to run us through some of these amazing awards you've been taking?
um, Picked up a lot of anxiety. I probably want to put out there more than titles. I would be like, Shella won this, Shella hyperventilated for this length of time. It's funny, I was so afraid of showing any of my work. And so when I actually did enter something, it was kind of like with this, oh, I can feel the anxiety now, putting
Yeah.
yourself out there. You don't get a performance review from your boss every 6 months. You literally have to have a look at your bank balance or have a look at the work that you've produced in your editorials. And that's your only performance review. So yeah, I picked up 7 awards last year, which was very exciting. Thank you.
Yay.
Everything I had entered, I won. It was the biggest thrill ever. Across 3 different platforms, which included 2 Australian titles, 1 editorial, and 1 Victorian. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's amazing, honey. And it goes to show, like, when you do put yourself out there, it can come back and you learn so much.
Absolutely. And it's a humbling experience every single time that someone recognizes you for anything, let alone to actually have a little trophy at home to say that, this is confirmed, you did good.
Yeah. Can I ask you as well, when you talk about, like, fear of putting your work out there,
Mm.
what's the main fear like when when you first started, obviously, you're kind of becoming a pro at the anxiety of putting a, submission together. But what is the fear that was sort of, you sort of saying in the beginning, I don't know if I'm ready to put my work out there.
It's funny. It's not as scary as you think once you've done it. I think it's like, when you jump off that 5-meter tower at the swimming pool, for the very first time, and you look down and people around you are like, you can so do this, just jump off it. And you go, oh, let me just take a moment. And then you jump off it anyway. And
Yeah.
as you're falling down there, you go, oh, I'm almost there. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
the same feeling. I put this fear aside because I just thought it was about time that I did. And I just don't think you can have a time that you're like, well, you know what, I feel good enough or I feel accomplished. Because, as a creative, your book is never how you want it to be. You're always kind of reaching for a different goal, or, you're thirsty for a new creativity in some way. And so you're never really completed. So I think sometimes we wait for our completed book moment or a completed folio moment. And as you know,
Yeah.
that's never going to happen. In
Yeah.
fact, I would literally, if one person right now watching this interview has completed their portfolio and they're happy with it, just let me know, because you're going to be the unicorn of the makeup world.
Yeah. I think probably across most artistic jobs, because
Absolutely.
there's something in you that wants to learn, wants to evolve, and wants to grow, and that's where creativity for me holds its strength.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, or maybe they're retired if their book's completed.
Well, I've just never seen it. Photographer, stylist, makeup artist, hairdresser, never once was someone's like, my book's at a good place right now, or my website's at a good place right now. Like, it seems to be just this ongoing joke between
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, they're always wanting that little bit more, and it's I
Exactly.
think that's a
But
good thing. It makes us
that's the
better.
thing. You're thirsty to learn something else, or you're inspired to create something new.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. Talking about inspiration, what's your process when generating new ideas? Where do you look for
Hmm.
inspiration?
My process on new ideas, I actually like going into a fabric store.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
it.
So you can only imagine when I was staying in this hostel in France recently, when I've walked upstairs and there's just like a million fabric stores everywhere. I was just like, this is my place. This is my place. But no, I like to kind of go through and see how the textures sit together, how the colors come together. For me, going into a Maya or a David Jones is beautiful, but I feel like they're particular seasonal looks. And you never really know what you're creating. If it's something which is more editorial, you're probably not going to be looking for the new summer collection. You're going to be going in and trying to, I guess, create something which your mind is feeding off, the energy. And I think if I go in and I have more of an open palette, something like a fabric store, for me, it allows me to see, these long lines of color going up to the roof with different lights. Normally the down lights hit them at the top, and then there's shadows at the bottom, and I can just see the way that it all kind of comes together. So for me, getting inspiration, flicking through a magazine. I very rarely collect things on Instagram. I'm really bad at mood boarding. I find it like really hard to do that. I'm not really part of Pinterest too much. I've tried to be on there, but I can't. But it's just walking around and creating something. I find as well, if I try and get too many mood boards together, I get disappointed because my model won't look the same, my lighting won't look the same, my styling won't look the same. So if I go in with something which is a little bit more blank to start with, and then build on there.
Cool. I really like that. And I like the idea of the fabrics, and I can see how that would work. If,
Mm-hmm.
while, when you're sort of working on an actual brief for a client or for yourself, with the whole process of the creative, like from going from one idea to the end finish, what is your process? Because everyone's so different. So
Mm.
obviously, like you're saying, starting with the blank canvas and building, but then what's your actual process within all of that?
Mm. Normally, I would take a lead on the client wanting to give me as much information from their mood to start with. And then I would try, in that instance, pull pictures and images together, because I find sometimes things can get lost in translation with a client. And you have to be very, 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 very precise to
Yeah.
also point out things to a client as well. Like you might send a reference, but you need to write down there, I like this for its lighting. The difference between this natural look and this natural look is this one's got her waterline flooded with kohl, this one does not. This one she's wearing foundation, this one does not. So I've got to be very, very specific, and I've got to normally put 2 or 3 options down. So when we're working with clients, I find that process to be very, very exact and very particular and almost excruciating, because you have to, you really are a team player there. You're not an individual mind.
Yeah. I think that's really key when you are working with clients, because if you can listen and deliver on their brief with
Mm.
your input,
Mm.
and you get booked again.
Exactly. And as I said, like, no one's going to come back to you afterwards. For any of my assistants, watching this now, like, I'm not going to come back to you afterwards and say, hey, you did really good there. I really loved how you did this and this. A client will never come back to you and give you feedback unless you've done something wrong. So sometimes that learning process can be quite brutal.
Mm. And I think the further in your career you get, generally you know what questions to ask and how
Mhm.
to be so particular that you're getting the answers that you need rather than
Exactly.
generalizing.
Exactly. And knowing as well, if you haven't heard from a client, to put your hand up and to just ask and say, hey, let's chat about this, or let's quickly have a little meeting, and let's look exactly what you want me to do. The other thing as well is sometimes people are afraid to ask a client. The fear of asking the client is like, oh my god, they're going to think that I'm being too demanding or something. But unless you are on that same page with that client, you're not the right person for that job.
Yeah. I 100% agree. You really have to not be afraid to ask the questions. And even if something's changing on set, you've got to put your
Exactly.
hand up and say something because it's your responsibility.
I remember having a brief one time and having a completely different human turn up, and everyone had just forgotten to tell me. And so
That's
instead of
nice.
actually getting a girl ready, I was getting a boy ready. But they still wanted the same makeup brief, which was still fine. It was great. But it was just the fact that all the dimensions were different. Height was different, weight was different, lights all had to be reset up. The look was different. He'd forgotten to shave. And it was hilarious because we all sat there on set and we had a bit of a laugh because we'd all completely forgotten to inform each other. And in the end, it took us about 30 minutes of having a cackle just to then go, okay, now let's just get back on track.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing as well to be able to laugh about, because so many people have something in their mind and they can't shift it quick enough.
Exactly. That's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you can free up that space inside, then the right
Mm,
message comes through and then the brief gets delivered again. But
yeah.
you've got to release that stress, I think. And
Especially when, and you would have experienced it too, where maybe a look has not worked and they've exhausted it and they've spent too long on it, and all of a sudden they're swapping looks out on set, but you're the last to be informed, and
Mhm.
you're like, oh gosh, like I've got 7 minutes to now do an updo and a winged liner, and she looks like she's just kind of come out from a walk in the forest at this point, and then your assistant will be like, oh, sorry, we can't do that. And I'll be like, oh, wow, you need to stop talking.
Yeah,
Um,
you just
you
wasted
can,
30 seconds of my time to change the look.
I'm like, no, 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 don't worry, we can do it. And then the assistants are like, oh, I don't think we can. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
shh.
Do you know, do you find that sometimes in those situations when, you've conceptualized something, the brief's all clear, and then when it does have to shift and it has to change and you've got to think on your feet, have you ever
Mm.
come across circumstances where it's actually turned out you're like, wow, I wouldn't have actually gone there, but this is great? Like, could you talk
I
us
had an
through?
I'd arranged an editorial test not too long ago, maybe about 12 months ago, and I had this killer idea. And you know what? Yeah, don't worry. Like, I'm still going to do it. Like, it was just like the most phenomenal idea. And on set, all the chemical reactions wouldn't work together. So I'm sitting there looking like a mad scientist in the photographer's kitchen. And I was just like, come on, Shella, you got this. And then,
Yeah.
like, I had the stylist going and collecting me different types of salts and all the rest. I was just like, this particular thing is just not rubbing together and this is not working. And I was like, you know what? I just took a breath and I just went, okay, we're going to just change everything. And I walked out, and it was one of my favorite shoots to date.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And within seconds it was done. It's like something just came over me, and I just, like, my body just had this exorcism moment, and I just was like, next,
Yeah.
let's just get on with it.
Is there something you do? Because to me, it sounds like you handle the high pressure situations quite well. And it also
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you found an internal way to release that preconceived idea of what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
and be
Mm-hmm.
able to move on. Is there a quick little 5 minute meditation you do, or is it just something that you can switch your brain into? Is
No,
there
I
any?
just switch off and I go really calm.
Yeah,
I just, for some reason, I just go really calm, and I just go, well, this is what the situation is. Just move on.
yeah.
And
I
you know
think
what? You can't spew that onto everyone else around you,
mm,
because the energy that can come down, and then you know who gets affected? The model.
yeah,
So even if you've done this wonderful job, if you're sitting there with this energy and you thrust that onto the model, the poor thing's going to be like, oh my God, I have to pick up the pieces. If I don't do this, then I'm letting down Shella, I'm letting down this person, I'm letting down that person. And I just feel like everything cascades into a whole myriad of emotions which are not required. And at the end
yeah,
of the day, we're normally there just getting a job done.
yeah. I think that's really nice advice because people often don't think they see this beautiful, glamorous person who is the model, and they don't take into account that they're absorbing all of your energy, all
All
of
of
the
it, all of
feeling.
it. Yeah. And you
And
might have someone who's really well seasoned, but the moment you have someone who's a little bit, timid or shy, or just kind of feeling out the water with their feet, on their first maybe few months of working, they don't know when you're quiet, you're thinking. They don't know when you're loud, you're just expressing. They don't know any of this. And so they're going to also try and appease all those feelings and be everyone's best friend. And the energy that some of them can put out, I think we need to kind of, think a little bit more about how they feel, because they've had to, you know, please the photographer, please the art director, please the producer, please the agent, please the hairdresser, please the stylist, please
Mhm.
the assistants, please the runner, and then of course the hardest one, pleasing me. No, no.
But it's really hard, and I just think so many people sometimes overlook the importance of the energy that you put out as an artist. And like what you're
Mm,
saying, if you can control your energy
yeah.
and provide the person in
and
the
just
chair that,
and just pull it in a little bit, and then just go, you know what, does not matter what you do at this point, there's nothing you can do or change.
that's right.
So you just move on, and it's for the greater good of the team to be able to do it.
Yeah. And I think that also shows a level of maturity in an artist as well. Like I know
Mm,
when I was young and like 22 years going into it now, but at the same time, there's something about when you're young, and I think when you're first starting out, it doesn't matter necessarily young in age, it's more like young in a career. And I think when you are just there in the beginning, you're nervous. And then that
Mm,
nervous energy, I remember, when you start to, or you see one of like your juniors do a wobbly mascara and they're nervous
mm.
and they're shaking, which makes the model nervous, and the model's doing this, even though they don't need to be.
Of
And
course,
so
of course.
it's something as simple as that with that energy transfer. And I
Mm,
think the best way to guide, younger people when they're coming up, like what you're doing with your assistants, is just show it's all doable. Take a
mm.
breath and take a
Yep,
step forward. Don't be
yep.
caught up in the drama of not being able to achieve that idea.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, having a little moment afterwards with your assistant, and it's okay to let them know what you were afraid of that day, because they may have been afraid of the same thing.
Yeah.
I know one assistant, I oversaw her blow drying. Now, the woman had really, really white bleached hair and dark roots. And my poor assistant is blow drying and 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 blow drying. I swear to God, there were hairs that were pointing straight up. I was like, I didn't know you could even blow dry that good. And I was like, why are you, darling? Why are you still blow drying? And she's like, it just won't dry. And I went over and I just had a look, and I just, split the part with my fingertips, and I said, oh, it's her hair's a little bit oily. And so you can't actually dry oil with a hairdryer. And so it was a learning kind of moment
Yeah.
there. But then the model was also like, my head feels a little bit, like it's getting quite warm now because I've had the dryer on it for a bit. And afterwards we kind of stepped back and I said, hey, if ever something's not working and it seems really, really simple, maybe just come and quiz me at the same time,
Yeah.
like, Shell,
Yeah.
this isn't drying. She has got aqua hair. I don't know what's going on. And it could be something as simple as like, yeah, hey, you know what? It's got a little bit of extra oil at the root, and we'll
Yeah.
just do a different hairstyle. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
talking about it afterwards, I did sit down with my assistant afterwards, and I said, hey, make sure that you have a look at wear a watch. Pop your mobile in front of you, check the times, and feel free to always come and ask me if you need anything.
Yeah, I think that's a nice thing to do because, when you do have assistants, you are there to help guide them when the
Mm.
time's right. Like in those
Yeah.
moments, you've got to, depending on who's sitting in the chair, it's about timing as well, about when you
Exactly.
say, and
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And you know what? It doesn't, I know that some assistants will say to me, oh, Shella, it's really nice because I know that I can just yell over two or three people's heads and I can be like, Shella, what type of mascara, curling twice, splitting the lashes, individuals. And it will just be a really quick sentence. And I'll be like, yeah, definitely something, like a Kevin Aqua or something, like a Mina waterproof or something like this, Idell
yeah,
flares, double ups, and then I'll just throw that information back. And it's just like this quick conversation rather than coming and having to make a formal kind of time to see someone.
yeah,
And they just roll on with their job because at the end
yeah,
of the day, they're on limits too.
yeah,
You know, an
yeah,
assistant that takes twice as long to do something is not an assistant that's going to come back again too fast.
yeah. It's so true because
Mm.
time, energy, wealth, they're my three things which go with everything.
Yeah, well, me and COVID, none of those apply. Just getting old, bored, and sad.
Hey, I'm putting my time, energy, and wealth, towards a lot of things. I styled my flowers,
Well, I'm
cleaned my
actually not.
blinds.
I'm not alone in COVID. I'm not alone in COVID.
Oh, hello
Not
there.
alone in COVID. Definitely not. It's been good. It's been really good.
I like it. Now, do you have a mantra that you like to work by or live by?
Not really. It's really funny. I feel like I'd be, more in tune with those things, but I'm just not. I think I'm just like, calm, be a good person, start your day, lick the chocolate off your cappuccino and just go, you know. That's it. That's me.
I like that. I like it a lot. Now, I just want to sort of we'll chat into sort of a personal branding, to
Hmm.
help other artists out there and understand why it's important. And I think my first question around that would what would define you as a makeup artist if you had to sort of put that into words around your purpose and personal branding?
Hmm.
As in, yeah, like, people would know you for a certain aesthetic, or would you like, what's a message that you like to get across to the client about you and your
Hmm.
work?
Things that define me would be that I love individual characteristics. So I'm always going to have a look and find the most beauty in each situation. So, I'm going to see you and be like, gosh, you've got great lips. Gosh, you've got a great lash line. Like, I love the way you do your brows. I'm going to look at those things and I'm going to
Yeah,
pull those things out. And for me, I'm constantly looking for that beauty in someone.
yeah,
So I like to go in and still have those characteristics being seen and shown at the end of my makeup. I know that sometimes when we think of makeup, we think about, oh my God, how can we reconstruct this person's face to make them look like a particular celebrity or a particular brand? And for me, I found that I was putting the same color foundations on people. I was putting the same lashes on people, the same eye colors. It all just became a little bit much, and it was about this one season that I tried to be a little bit different, and it hammered to me how much I like to actually look at people's features. So for me, I want to find the beautiful features in you, and I want to do that with the most, I guess, strategic amount of trickery that I can possibly do. So I don't want to just kind of put on this one particular eye color or set of lashes or this one particular brow style and be like, now you're beautiful.
yeah.
I want to be working with what you've got.
Yeah. I think that's a really nice thing as well in a world sometimes that can sometimes be a little bit people wanting to look so much like, a standard or something, but that,
And these
you-
people are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But at
yeah,
the end of the day, I mean, how nice is it when you roll over and you wake up with your significant other and they still look the same and you still look the same?
yeah. I
You
think there's
know,
something nice about, finding that uniqueness and individuality in people and, you know,
exactly.
it comes from in here, in the soul, but it also is part of the aesthetic. And it's a
Mm,
really beautiful thing to find that and also to share it with the person in your chair because quite
yes.
often people see themselves in a certain way.
Mm,
And so when you share that little bit of information with them, they're like, oh, oh. And you see people's body language change. And it's something, it's a gift
yeah.
that as an artist you get to give to that person in the chair.
Mm,
And
mm.
then I think that in itself is beautiful, you know?
Exactly. I remember telling someone once, I was like, gosh, you've got nice sockets. And she was like, wow, I have never been told that. And it was funny. We laughed about it for such a long time. Like, I laughed that much. I needed a Ventolin afterwards. Like, I
Oh my
literally
God.
started hacking. And I thought to myself, Shella, before you go and tell someone they've got nice sockets, maybe think about what that's like for the other for the other person receiving the information. But you know what? She really worked those sockets.
I love it. I love it.
It was
Oh,
hilarious because like she went on and she was like, I've learned all these new techniques, I bought all these colors, and I don't know, it was something which was so funny and made me laugh so much. But
I love it.
in the end it had such a phenomenal result. And you're right, it's telling someone sometimes that they've got something nice, they might not hear it.
Yeah, yeah. I've always thought one of the things that I've had felt was a real privilege working as an artist was sharing the beauty
Absolutely. Yeah.
that you see in this person that
Yeah.
they might not see in themselves because
Mm.
you look at certain people and you get up, you've got to spend 5 minutes on yourself, you go to work or you've got kids and you're running around and you just see the tired, the busy, the stressed,
And isn't it
everything.
funny? It is. It's exactly what someone will sit down and say to me. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I haven't had my lashes refilled. I'm looking a little bit puffy. I'm looking a little bit tired. My top lip's not so full," or they're just going to come out with all these things which they're
Mm,
obviously wanting me to Houdini. But I'm so okay with that, knowing what someone's fears are of that moment. But
yeah.
it's also nice to go, well, hey, hold on, that might be the case, but check out how fluffy your brows are and look at your lashes, on the end. So look what we can actually do to lift up the eye, take away that tired, and create different, draw points to the eye.
Yeah. And it's just people, it's a really unusual thing that we all see sometimes that the hard parts of us just in the
Yeah, of
mirror
course.
and
Yeah, of course.
not
I mean,
spending
I'm
that
wearing.
time to go, oh, you know what, I actually feel good today. And,
Yeah.
I'm, and about looking a bit deeper than just this and yeah.
Mm. Well, I mean, for me as well, like, I guess, I'm going through this 75-year braces treatment. So, like, for me, like, sometimes I stop and I go, gosh, I'd really love to wear this, and this. And if ever I try it, I realize it's not that scary. I'll put on that orange, or do you remember Candy Yum Yum? Do you remember Candy Yum
Yes,
Yum, Mac?
it
My
was
God,
the
I put
best
that on.
pink lipstick ever.
I put that on the other day, and my mind just had this little popping noise, and I went, yep, your mind has now blown. And I just forgot how good I felt in it. The way it made you
Yeah.
tan and the skin come through. And I was
Mhm.
like, Shella, you're wearing braces, there's no way you can put on Candy Yum Yum. But it's sometimes you've just got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just, yeah, lose it all and just put it on and just feel good.
Put it on and feel good.
I love
Exactly.
that. I love that a lipstick can do that for you.
Oh my God, it's such a nice feeling, isn't it? When you just put something on and then you just walk out and you're like, and this person that you become when you put on it like a
Yeah.
great new lipstick. Oh my God, it's such a good feeling.
I love it. I'm all for a good lippy. No, and lipo maybe next year after
You know
COVID.
what? I actually would be like, could you just transfer this lipo to my new account? Yeah.
Oh God. All right, going back to personal branding. Would
Yes.
you say, like, would you be able to give someone in the artist world coming through, like, some tips as to how to create something that's strong for them? Like, to what to
Mm.
look for within themselves as to how they should project themselves?
Yeah. Look, I think some of the things that have been memorable for me when I look at, I guess, either my up and coming assistants or even meeting new people, I always observe different things about them. And I guess that's where I can make these comments now about what my suggestions would be for a new brand. I find it sometimes nicer to say a little bit less and to listen a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about what you want to be, take that step back and like listen a bit, because a lot of things that you're curious about are going to come to you organically. And then I would say go through and maybe focus on doing 3 killer shoots, and then sit back and have a look and say, do these align with how I feel about where I want to go forward in my career?
Yeah.
And then from there, that's when you'll start to realize who you are as a brand.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice because when you talk, you're only speaking what you already know. And when you're
Exactly. You're not
quiet,
taking anything else in.
yeah, you'll learn. You
Yeah.
learn so much more sometimes. And I think part of people who, extroverts and sometimes creative people and that energy that you have, the adrenaline, can
Hmm.
sometimes just come out as blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. And you know what? And sometimes it's just, sometimes it's your enthusiasm, but as you're saying, like, you aren't really pulling out things that are new for yourself if you're saying them.
That's right. And I
Mm.
think when you learn to control that energy, like we spoke about, and that could be
Mm.
nerves, it could be however that comes up for you and shows its face, when you do,
Mm.
you can direct that as calm and do it inwards to then come out. So it's coming out in a thoughtful, mindful, your creativity becomes a lot more clear as
It
well.
does. It absolutely does. And you hear what the client's after, and I feel like you can respond correctly. But then once again, it's not about you just pleasing your client. It's also about understanding who you want to be. So you will then realize, is that the job for me?
Yeah.
And I feel like you'll make those discoveries quite quick when you start to kind of have a look in the environments that you're putting yourself into.
Mm-hmm. And you have to trust what you feel as
Mm.
well. And a lot
If
of
you
people
walk
don't.
away, yeah, and don't feel great about a job either, there's also a lot of time for reflection. But I think finding out who you are as a brand is sometimes hard in a world if you feel like you don't fit in.
But maybe this is where I think people should have, rather than see that you need to fit in, what is it
Mm.
that makes you different and use
Mm.
that?
Mm.
Because that, sometimes it's I remember like a couple of years ago and sort of writing like an article piece and I was really struggling, and someone said, "Well, why are you just talking about the good stuff that's happening for you in business? Like you're
Mm.
pretty much nearly bankrupt, and that could be your draw card into having people really listen to you
Yeah,
because you've gone
exactly.
from that to that." So
Mm.
sometimes it's that uniqueness or your own journey that,
Mm,
and that's something that makes you different, is
mm.
something that can be used in a positive way to make you stand out in a good way.
Yeah, I do remember someone saying to me one time, they said, oh, Shella, like I hear that you hardly use foundation. And I said, oh, yes, that's true. I said, well, I just don't put it on first. I feel like if you need it at the end, we can talk about that. But if you feel like you need it, also let me know. And there's never been a time where I've, been able to do great skin work where someone's gone, I need to have my face now flooded with a foundation because I don't feel good. You know what? Not one client in my history, my whole career, not one person has gone, no, not good enough. So, I mean, unless they're all saying it behind my back, I don't know. Maybe they are. But what I'm saying is sometimes when you hear someone say something about you as well, you go, hold on, you're right. That is how I've branded myself now, you
Yeah.
know. So sometimes hearing that is a good sobering moment, because then you can also establish as well how you are seen.
Yeah, I really like that. Now, I
Hmm.
just wanted to chat. Have you had, and this is sort of to
Pardon?
help people with resilient mindset and
One
things like that.
second. I'm pushing the cat off so he doesn't attack us. Yep. No. Yes. No, you don't, Serge, mister. Sorry. I've got this. He's just like slowly just getting the chords and go on.
Have you ever sort of looked back and gone, that was within itself what the end result might have been, like a complete failure, so to speak, but when you've reflected on a situation or a shoot or something within your career and just thought, you know what? That's actually taught me so much. And so, kind of looking for the success in failure, if you've ever experienced, and what allowed you to take that little bit of a look back and then find the success in that.
Look, I think the shoot that I mentioned before, where I had this giant experiment that I wanted to conduct on set, and the whole thing was just, oh my God, it was a disaster. I can't even tell you the whole thing. But then what I did is I had no references, no motivation for any other look, nothing. I literally just stood back and I looked at the situation and I went, now you're going to have to read this for how it is, and what do you still want to put out there. And I had to come up with it like so fast. I think I only had about 5 minutes each makeup look. So it was just something that I was just like, you know what, you have to dig deep right now, and you just have to take a moment and ultimately what's missing for you in your book and what do you want to see. And you just have to give yourself this 30-second little interview in your mind, and then just put one foot in front of the other. And for me, that was that moment.
Yeah. And do you find now, knowing that you've done that in a situation that was, high pressure and something that you were really trying to achieve and it was big for you, do you find now, knowing that you can do that, that you can pull
Mm.
on that and say, okay, great, I've got this if stuff happens?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I know that was a personal situation, like it was something that I had created. I did have something that was pretty major that happened to me internationally, which was quite funny. So I'm doing a Schumacher art of hair shoot. I'm the lead artist. I have got 3 assistants. One of the assistants was actually Mr. Schumacher's ex-assistant. It was huge. In Tokyo, I had 7 models. We had 2 looks. We had the hair team going in full force. And I just went to the girls, guys, we're just not going to use any oils. We're not going to use any red through the eyebrows. We're not going to, and then one of the girls comes over and she stops me and she's like, Shella, they can't speak English. And I went, oh, well, this is great. So let's do that again. So I've come out and I said, look, we're not going to have any red through the eyebrows. We're not going to use any oils. And then I'm interrupted again. Oh, Shella, we can't not use an oil. It's Schumacher. And I went, oh, no. I completely respect the brand, but the gowns are like $30,000 each. Like, we're probably not going to use oils, all up the neck and the face, because we've got outfit changes and, we go from here to the streets of, Harajuku or down in those other areas. And I said, look, we're probably not going to do that, are we? And it was just the most lost in translation moment. And you know what I did? I trusted my assistants. That's where I went wrong. I trusted my assistants. I looked after two people on this side of the room, and on that side of the room, I came back with oily skin, white foundations, and red in the eyebrows. So I had to actually
Oh, wow.
super politely ask them to all sit down and have a refreshing cup of tea while I removed all the makeup, and I did all the 7 makeups in about 30 minutes. It was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And look, you know, I did good. That's it. That's all I can summarize that with. I did good. And, you know, the look was beautiful. You know, glossy skin. I'd used a lip liner on the eyes that had been smudged in with a gel across it, and then had like this perfect liner across it. And one of the assistants, she was so beautiful. She's like, she's behind me and she was video recording, and she was like, how you do such precision? And I actually turned around and had a little bit of a snort because I laughed. And I said, oh, I didn't even realize you're behind me. I thought you meant to be having a cup of tea. And she's like, you do such precision. And she's like, thank you for having us. So, you know, if anything, I was able to, you know, show them a skill that I had learned in my eyeliner. I'd showed them a new way of doing something. And I got a few thank you messages afterwards, actually, even though in my mind it was an absolute disaster at that time. Like, I was literally like, is that bag I can hyperventilate into, because I'm going to need it. Like, I'm literally like, and then my producer's like, you've got this right, Shella, you've only got so many minutes. And I'm like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a lot, and you know what? It was such a great shoot. Such a great shoot.
Yeah, I love that. Always good key learnings.
Always.
What would you say like has been sort of one of your proudest moments in your career so far?
I'm going to say my awards from last year. Taking out 7 awards was pretty special for my heart last year. It was a really turbulent year for me, and just to be able to have that peer recognition, you know, even if I had just had the recognition and not the award, I think it would have been a moment for me that filled me with, you know, a sense of happiness and joy and confidence.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Shella Martin, thank you so much for joining us today on Brilliant Brains and Beautiful Minds.
Thank you, Darwin. Thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks again for joining me for this episode of Brilliant Brains and Beautiful Minds. I'm Melanie Burnicle. Till next time.